22. Nathan? I say. He's just as I remember him from the pictures, fattish, with a ruddy sort of face. Nice shoes, black suit pants that look expensive but are badly wrinkled and nearly ruined. In his matching black jacket and tie, he looks like a corpse dressed for the casket, undead and standing right in front of me, watching me with a sort of vague disinterest. I hope he can see me all right as I slide my .44 back into its chest holster and raise both hands toward the ceiling, trying to convey a truce. I'm working for your father, Nathan, I say. Are you hurt? Nathan watches my movements but says nothing. He almost looks disinterested, staring right through me. I don't know the whole story here, and I don't know what you've done, or haven't done, or why, I tell him. But I'm no cop, so it doesn't much matter to me. Your father just wants to know what happened to you. Nobody else needs to die. Let's put an end to it. Nathan tilts his head to look at the ground as if considering. Whatever ulterior plan were a part of this scheme, and whether he was a willing participant or not, he surely didn't anticipate this much violence and death. Seeing what just transpired here seems to have him in a state of moderate shock, and he's not the only one. Why Wilmer would have done what he just did is beyond me. When he wakes up, Nathan closes the gap between us so fast I can't even finish my thought. There's no time defending myself. In one motion, he rushes me, grabs me by my arms raised in surrender, turns, and flings me over his shoulder like a toy. I'm airborne. Me. A 6'5", 275-pound man. Airborne. Picked up and tossed like a toy. How high and how far, I can't say. But I am a projectile long enough for at least one full, startling thought to cross my mind. Nathan Harland is, somehow, stronger than any man alive. I crash land atop a folding crime scene fence, which buckles beneath my weight, probably saving me from a broken neck or worse. I scramble to get up, but my feet are entangled in fencing. Thunder explodes high overhead, and through holes in the factory ceiling, a flash of lightning turns the sky yellow. I can hear Nathan's approaching footsteps somewhere in the darkness. Rolling free of the fencing, I pull a flash grenade from inside my blazer. I pop the pin. Nathan's shadow is coming straight for me. I drop the grenade and turn my head with arm raised to shield my eyes. Even through closed eyes, I can see the flash, bright as a lightning strike, right here on the factory floor, and all the more potent in this darkness. Nathan will have received the brunt of it. Even if his eyes were closed, an explosion of sharp pain in my lower back, and I'll go tumbling, sliding, rolling across the factory floor. I don't know what hit me. A fist, a foot, a knee, a steel girder, but it was hard. And I know even before I've come to a stop that I'm busted up good. Something's broken in there, I'm sure of it. When I stop rolling, I pull the .44 and draw aim in the darkness, but Nathan is nowhere to be found. For a couple of seconds, I sit there, panting hard, grunting from the pain that each breath sets to stabbing into my back. I try to keep my arms steady as I look down the metal sights, aiming into the darkness where Nathan Harland, or whatever Nathan Harland has become, disappeared. But all I can see are shadows on shadows. A couple dozen yards away, 3 discarded flashlights lie uselessly on the ground, illuminating nothing but rust, the puddles on the floor, and the foot of Jean-Luc Albright's corpse. Damn it, I wheeze. But it's more of an automatic response than anything. I'm not even sure who I should be mad at. Maybe at Nathan for throwing me around like an irate drunk throwing his bar stool. Maybe at Wilmer for showing his true colors at a moment when there was nothing I can do to save Albright. Maybe at Rutherford for sending me to my death like this. More likely, I'm just mad because I'm such a glutton for punishment. Still no sign of any movement in the darkness. The grinding and stabbing in my back is an awful affair as I attempt to stand. It takes several tries, but it seems I was lucky. It's more pain than damage. Whatever's broken didn't cripple me. Right now, that's all that matters. Nathan, I holler. No answer. just thunder. I turn to look toward the front door. How far would I make it if I tried to run? Probably not very far. So instead, I turn and head deeper into the factory, weapon raised. The broken wall panel where I escaped before. I know it's somewhere this direction. With any luck, Nathan doesn't know about it. "Nathan!" I call out again. "I don't know what's happened to you, but we can fix it. Things are bad. People are dead. But we can fix it." Sneaking down a shoulder-high row of pallet stacks, limping against the stabbing pain in my back, I keep my gun raised, tucked nice and close against my chest for maximum mobility. With every beat, my pounding heart seems to shake me from hip to collarbone. "You've got money," I yell. "Your father's got even more. You in some sort of trouble? Even if you have to do some time, money can buy a lot of things. It won't be so bad. You'll be out before you know it, and things can go back to the way they used to be." A rhythmic sound is suddenly echoing through the factory that stops me in my tracks. As it grows louder and longer, I finally realize that what I'm hearing is a clucking sort of laughter. "You can't begin to understand," a voice says. I'm looking around frantically, but the voice seems to be coming from every direction. I can't tell whether he's in front of me, behind me, beside me. "You think I don't know how these things work?" I holler, trying to get him to speak again so I can pinpoint his location. "I used to be a cop. I can help you." "You don't know who you are dealing with, Jack the Knife." And then I realize where the voice is coming from. Above. 23. I crane my neck, searching the ceiling, and my eyes come to rest on the boxcar-like structure hanging high overhead. The foreman's roost, where supervisors once oversaw work throughout the entirety of this factory in its heyday. No noises, no more voices. The only sound is the shuffling of my own feet, and the little sounds in my throat I can't help from making when the pain hits too badly to stifle them. I bend over slightly, trying to stretch out my back. It's already swelling and getting stiff, but stretching only makes things worse, so I just keep moving. Every few steps, I look over my shoulder. I suddenly realize only 2 of the discarded flashlights remain. Maybe Nathan grabbed the 3rd one. Or maybe Wilmer woke up and took it for himself. Stupid of me to have left him there. I should have used his own cuffs on him while he was knocked out, but I had more pressing concerns at the time. Maybe he escaped, or maybe he grabbed Albright's shotgun and he's following me right now. I'm standing directly beneath the foreman's roost. There's a lift, but it looks like it hasn't functioned in years. The service ladder, a tower of uncaged steel rising 30 feet into the air, is my only option. I stop, taking a moment to reconsider every crazy notion running through my head. I don't know why Nathan came at me like that. He could have killed me. Now, I'm injured and outmatched, against an opponent whose abilities far exceed my own. And he called me by name. How did he know who I am? The front door is too risky now, with Wilmer possibly waiting there. That means I either continue toward that broken panel in the rear of the factory, or I attempt a very high climb. I wrap my fingers around a rung of the rusty service ladder and give an experimental shake. I look up into the darkness. As attractive as a retreat sounds right about now, I might not get another shot at getting to the bottom of this. Negotiating with Nathan now is about the only chance I have of figuring out just what's going on. I holster my .44. I grit my teeth against the impending pain, grab on, and start climbing. I don't look down. I feel rather than see my steadily increasing altitude. With every inch gained, my back hurts all the more. When I'm almost to the top, I stop and wrap my arm around a ladder rung to draw my pistol. I lick my dry lips and try not to notice how badly my hand is shaking. With weapon at the ready, I take the last few rungs slowly, peeking my head up to spy into the opening. Nobody's waiting for me, but it's dark, and I can't see much through the opening except a big, faded glass window that once served as the foreman's view of his factory floor far, far below. I pull myself up and step into the room with the gun tucked close to my chest. So the old man wants to know what happened to his boy. I spin and duck low, pointing my pistol into the shadows. At first, I can't see him, but then he steps forward, and I get a good view of the outline of his body. A very normal, human body, not at all indicative of the speed and strength he displayed down on the factory floor. I've got the gun aimed at his chest. I won't be caught unaware again. I don't want to kill him, but if it comes down to it, I'll learn to live with myself. He was going to leave you everything, Nathan, I say. Why fake your own death? Why cause all of this? You're in over your head, Knife, says Nathan. You're asking all the wrong questions. He shakes his head pityingly. No matter. In the end, you're just more flesh and blood. Just another body. On the last word, he bolts. His speed is incredible, but this time I'm ready. I let him have it. I shoot him dead center in the chest. He staggers, but he's still coming, so I shoot again. I shoot again and again, pumping slug after slug into his upper body. He tries to keep moving, but with every pull of the trigger, his body convulses, driving him backward step by step. Holes open across his casket-ready jacket with every shot. Yet even after 9 bullets have punched clean through his body, my gun's empty, and he still won't go down. The bullets only slowed him. Now that I'm out, he charges at me like a freight train. With a grunt of effort, I dive, throwing the full weight of my body into his oncoming feet. The pain in my back as I hit the floor makes me audibly cry out. Nathan's coming in too fast to stop. He crashes into me, tripping over my body. I feel his fingers graze desperately against my shoulder, trying to grab hold, but he misses. His momentum is too much. His body pitches forward. A loud crash. Shattered glass rains down. Nathan goes through the window face first, somersaults wildly, and plummets. He never makes a sound as he falls. It's almost 2 full seconds later, 1/1000 to 1,000, before I hear the thud of his body hitting the concrete 30 feet below. Glass is all over me, new cuts on my head and hand. I lie there listening, trying to hear his moans of pain down below, cries for help, dying breaths, anything. But there's nothing, not a damn thing. All I can hear is my own labored breathing. A whole clip. I unloaded a whole clip on him, every one a potential kill shot, and he never made a sound, barely slowed down. Thunder crashes somewhere over the city in the distance. The rattle of the rain against the roof is lessening. The storm is passing. I stand up to the tune of tinkling glass. I try to rub some feeling into my aching back, switch out the empty clip in my .44 for a full one, and head over toward the ladder. As I descend, my knees are shaking, both from nerves and from physical exertion. Constantly, I scan the black void below, knowing all the time that backstabbing little murderer, Wilmer O'Hara, is still here somewhere. All this time, he's been in on this, probably taking his orders from the Blue Wreath. I should have been more careful. When I finally make it off the ladder, my arms hurt almost as bad as my back. I draw my .44 and head over, scanning the area below the foreman's roost. I feel bad for what I had to do to Nathan. It's going to kill Rutherford. I did my best to reason with him, but in the end, he gave me no choice but to. Shattered glass everywhere. No body. My gun's at the ready as I spin in a tight circle, trying to look every direction at once. I pace around the immediate area, thinking maybe he survived the fall long enough to crawl away before giving up the ghost. But there's nobody to be seen. He's gone. My pulse is racing now. A splinter of cold, venomous panic is working its way deeper and deeper into my brain. Whatever Nathan had become, I'm lucky to have survived against him this long. In my search for a body, I've wandered close to the 2 discarded flashlights and their cones of light. Wilmer's gone, as I knew he would be. I turn toward Albright's body and almost run into Nathan. I'm just quick enough on the draw to fire once before he can grab me. My aim is perfect. The shot hits him square in the jaw, blowing a hole through his head. It only stuns him. He takes the gun out of my hand as if I'm giving it to him as a present. Then he grabs me by the throat and lifts me with one hand. My feet leave the ground. I can't breathe. My windpipe is being crushed beneath Nathan Harlan's superhuman grip. The muscles in my neck are strained nearly to the straining point just from trying to support the full weight of my body, suspended in midair by Nathan Harlan, who holds me up with only one arm. His other arm is dangling strangely at his side, having almost snapped completely off in the fall. Sparking wires hang out of it. I see a gleam of metal peeking through his lapel where my gunshots hit home, and his face, where I just shot him point blank. His entire lower jaw has been blown free, leaving only half a mouth, in fact. At his cheek, a phony layer of torn skin, bloodless, hangs like peeling wallpaper from metal cheekbones. My lungs feel like they're shriveling inside my chest. Spots are forming at the corners of my vision, but there's still enough oxygen in my brain for several trains of thought to collide into a flaming pileup. The pallets, too heavy for a human being to have moved without equipment. The mutilated body of Nathan Harlan, the bruising on the neck, the 45-degree angles of the gunshot wounds. This isn't Nathan Harlan. Nathan Harlan is dead, of course. Has been all along. Killed by this thing. His own double. A bot, like the butler Hennessy, constructed to look like him. Picked up and shot at a 45-degree angle upward through each eye. But I can't think anymore. My brain is shutting off. I'm striking him in the forearm with my fists. I'm grabbing at his hand, trying to pry his cold, robotic fingers from my neck. It's impossible. A final idea enters my darkening mind. I stop clawing at his hand and reach instead for his damaged arm. My hand finds wires. I barely even notice my fingers being shocked and scorched as I grab hold of a wad of wires, rip them hard, and pull them upward, shoving them into contact with the exposed metal in the face cavity where Bot Nathan's jaw used to be. There's a blinding flash crack of grounded electrical energy. A wild, white arc jumps from the contact point and sparks fly. Bot Nathan wheels back. His hand unclenches and I drop. To pause to catch my breath would be unwise, so I don't. I pump my legs and leap straight into the cone of light where Albright fell. Wilmer didn't take the shotgun. I grab it. I roll over to level it at Bot Nathan, place my finger on the trigger, but he's nowhere to be seen. The shotgun is tight in my trembling hands. I suck in desperate breaths, trying to resupply my body with oxygen through a throat that feels like it just swallowed a gallon of gasoline. But despite the air coming back into my body, my vision is only getting worse. It should be getting better. Instead, it's telescoping inward into a smaller and smaller circle of vision. Something is running down behind my ear. I raise my hand and touch it. Within the tiny gun barrel left of my vision, I see my own hand coated in sticky red blood. Must have hit my head when he dropped me. A whistling in my ears. No, sirens. Lots of them. Police cruisers coming this way. And me, lying here beside a dead cop. Even though I can barely see anything, I try to stand up. Try to will my adrenaline to fuel my body. Got to get out of here. Can't let them catch me again. Can't let them catch me again. Can't go through another murder trial in another courtroom. Can't feel my legs. Can't even feel my head hitting the floor as I fall forward. The last of my waning vision finally devolves into a pinprick. Blackness. Sirens all around me. 24. We met in the spring. She wore a white dress. The Songbird Diner was busy that night. I was young and mean, fresh home from the war, but I guess she didn't hold it against me. I asked her to dance. It was the luckiest break I ever got. Over the following weeks, my life changed almost without me noticing, the way the best kinds of change always seem to occur. Years of fighting had put ice in my veins. But each night, after drinks and dancing, we would kiss goodnight and go our separate ways. And molecule by molecule, the ice melted away. She was younger than me, but the age difference never seemed to bother her. She'd been orphaned as a child, raised by her grandmother until she was old enough to go off and study art at the university. She loved music and she loved dancing. But most of all, she loved people. Meeting them, talking to them, hearing their stories, learning every little thing about them. She was such a free spirit, beautiful, pure, good. That first night, it took me all of 10 minutes to fall in love with her. And every minute after that, I loved her all the more. It all came very naturally, the changes in my life. Nothing conscious or premeditated about them. I smoked, but it made her cough sometimes, so I quit. I had a bad attitude when I hung around my old buddies, and I started to drift away from them and found I didn't miss them. The hotel room I lived out of was a rat's nest, but I tried to keep it clean on the off chance she might someday see it. I lived for drinks and dancing at the Songbird. It was all that existed or needed to. On the first day of summer, I asked Maria to marry me. "Well, of course," she said, without batting an eye. "I promise I'll take care of you," I told her. "I know you will, Jack," she said. We eloped and spent 3 months together on the coast. Magical times. Our lives were our own. We belonged to each other and no one else. We bought a place on the outskirts of Amber City, and I took that job with the police department. In the years to come, I saw some bad things, but everything was all right because I knew what I was coming home to. No matter what the scum of this city did to one another, no matter what kind of garbage I had to wade through during the day, I could still come home to her. And that made life a wonderful thing. She loved children, but for some reason never seemed interested in having any of her own. I always suspected it was the untimely deaths of her parents that had done it, drawing some subconscious association between motherhood and tragedy. But it was something else, too. "I just can't see myself as a mother," she once said. "Can you imagine me, some old woman someday, with grown-up children?" And there it was. She wanted to stay young forever. In a way, she did. I just wish I had too. 25. "Maria!" My own voice wakes me from a very bad night's sleep. Specters of forgotten nightmares tug on my subconscious. I hurt all over. I blink hard against the stabbing pain in my head. My eyes adjust, and I'm looking at the ceiling of a dark room. It feels like a long time has passed for some reason, but I can't remember where I am or how I got here. All I can remember is the sound of sirens. A jail cell. How could I have let it happen? How could I have let them get me? But no, it couldn't be. It's too dark in here. They keep the cells bright. So bright that the nauseating sterile whiteness of the walls practically blinds you. This place. I try looking around, but moving sends sharp pains through my back, and I grit my teeth and try not to cry out. I'm lying on the floor, shirtless, with bandages around my midsection, and one big, adhesive compress stuck to the back of my head. Vaguely, an image comes to mind of sticky blood on my hand. A noise from outside. My eyes find a single wooden door across the room, closed. Beyond comes a sound of approaching footsteps. Ignoring the pain in my head and back, I crawl to the door, pull myself up to a crouch, and position myself behind the hinges. The knob turns. The door inches open. Light spills in, illuminating the empty floor. I close my hand into a fist and raise it to strike. The door stands open, but nobody comes in.
"Do you remember what you told me about knives?"
It's a woman's voice. She's in the doorway, but she hasn't stepped in. She knows I'm standing here. In fact, it sounds like she's speaking directly to the door.
"You said that a knife is loyal," she continues, "but that never stopped anyone from cutting herself with one. I hope I haven't made that mistake tonight."
"Mrs. Reed," I say.
"I think we're past formalities now, Jack. Yvonne will do. May I come in?"
I step out from behind the door into the light. With the adrenaline of the moment gone, this simple act pains me so much that I drop to the floor. I plop down on my oversized bottom and just sit there. Yvonne enters the room. Her hair is tied back, and she's wearing a hard-shell plated, synthetic protective suit, the kind people wear for riding sky bikes. She reaches for the light switch. "Don't," I say. "Please. Leave it off." My head. I can barely even look at the light of the doorway. It feels like a pressure washer is stripping paint off the inside of my skull. Mercifully, Yvonne leaves the light off and shuts the door behind her. In the half-glow of electric displays throughout the room, didn't notice those until now, I can see the silhouette of her body as she approaches. She kneels down but keeps her distance. "Guess I'm not in jail," I say.
"No," she says. "Not this time. Do you remember anything?"
"Plenty," I say.
"You've been out for a long time. Almost 12 hours.
"How am I not dead?"
Wasn't sure if you were going to make it, so I kept you sedated until I got the internal bleeding to stop. What's the last thing you remember?"
I'm too confused to ask her to elaborate, so I answer, "Fighting a monster. Losing. Sirens. Blood. Albright's shotgun. Passing out."
"I brought the shotgun with me."
She gestures to the corner of the room, and sure enough, Albright's double-barrel shotgun is leaning against the wall.
"You had such a death grip on that thing. I thought I'd better bring it along."
"Why did you—" I hesitate. "How?"
"You're right. That's a much better question."
She stands up, and with a sure-footed stride completely different than the phony, gliding strut she normally uses, she crosses the room and checks a set of monitors on the wall.
"I was listening in on police communications when Detective O'Hara called in the murder of his partner, Detective Albright."
She types something in at the monitors, steps back when she's satisfied, and returns to stand beside me.
"He said the killer, a private investigator named Jack Tarelli, was armed and dangerous. Then he requested backup, gave the address, and recommended that you be gunned down on sight. You probably would have been, too. Cop killers don't last long, even unconscious ones. Luckily for you, I got here first. Brought you back here to my place."
I turn and scan the room. Workstations, monitors, and instruments line the walls. There's only one window, and even from the floor, I can see an impressive view of the skyline of Amber City. "We're in Rutherford's tower." Yvonne smirks.
"Let's keep that our little secret, all right? This is where I keep an eye on things and do work that needs to be done. The kind not everybody needs to know about. My father pays little enough attention to me, so my secret life easily goes unnoticed. He has no idea this place exists."
I can only shake my head. There are 100 more questions that need asking, but I can't decide which one should come next.
"You know what the toughest part of everything was?" she says. "Just getting you off the ground and onto my damn bike. A diet would do you some good, Tarelli."
I place a hand over my bare belly, feigning indignation. Finally, Words reach my mouth. You, didn't find Nathan tonight, did you?
No.
Her brows furrow.
Did you?
I ignore the question. You told me you put on an act, I say, my eyes scanning the equipment in the room. But I had no idea. A secret base of operations. Hacking secure police channels. Who are you, really? She looks down at me.
For a start, I'm Royal Evening.
26. Well, aren't you something? I say. Royal Evening. It was you who made that mysterious real estate purchase, with company money, and behind your father's back.
Yvonne sighs. I wish it were as simple as all that.
She crosses the room, leans against the wall, taps her fingernails against the arm of her riding suit like she's trying to figure out where to begin. I decide to help her. You must have had some sort of plan lined up, I say. You saw a financial opportunity. You needed those properties to make it happen, and you needed them discreetly. So you came here to your little secret room with your high-tech gadgets, where you do things you think people don't need to know about, and you bought the properties yourself. And in case anybody followed the trail, you left a red herring. Royal Evening. The name of Nathan's old luxury space liner. If somebody caught wind of something foul, they'd trace it back to him instead of... Yvonne shakes her head.
Wrong,
she says. For some reason, I decide now's a good time to try standing. When going about it the usual way doesn't work, I prop one knee on the ground and use my hands to boost up to my feet. I've made all sorts of unflattering noises by the time I finally stand. My lower back is stiff. There's a bandage on my hand, the spot where little Wilmer bit me, and I can feel the cooling, heating effect of medical salves at work beneath the bandage on the back of my head. Out of everything, that's the part that hurts worst. That, and my neck, from being picked up and choked. I touch my neck experimentally and flinch.
I did leave the name Royal Evening, Yvonne says. You're right about that. But I wasn't trying to pin anything on anybody. I was trying to be found.
I'm about to tell her how little sense that makes when she opens her mouth to keep talking.
I've had my suspicions about Nathan for a long time, she says. I kept tabs on him, but for years I was able to fool myself into believing he would never betray our father. He'd been distant, and he'd made some questionable decisions in the past. But working with Blue Wreath was a line I thought he would never cross.
You think Nathan was with the mob? She hesitates.
Before I go any further, there are two things I want to know.
She looks at me hard. Her eyes are reminiscent of the uppity brat from the first night, but everything else, her expressions, her tone of voice, her mannerisms, are completely different. This is the real Yvonne. Royal Evening. Visible to me clearly for the first time, a cool, calculating intelligence working within the very shadows of her own opulence.
Did you kill that cop? She asks.
No, I say.
What about Maria?
I shake my head. She looks at me a moment and says,
I believe you.
I don't care whether you do or not, I say.
I can see that, she says. That's why I believe you.
That man you overheard, I say. Detective O'Hara. He's the one who killed Albright, his own partner. Particle pistol. Shot him in the back.
Why?
If I had to guess, I'd say he's one of those crooked cops you hear so much about. Your father suspected the mob was wrapped up in this from the start. The order must have come down to Wilmer that Albright's time was up. Maybe he was getting too close to the truth. Wilmer tried to get to me, too, but it didn't go down the way he planned. Yvonne cocks an eyebrow.
Looked to me like he worked you over pretty good.
I scratch at a couple of days' worth of facial hair on my neck. I've been doing a lot of talking. You were saying something about your brother and the mob.
There's not much to tell,
says Yvonne.
Nathan's worked for my father's company on the Invictus Moon for years, and, as I said, I've had my suspicions about what he was up to in his spare time. He was so much older than me that we were never very close, but we were still family. When I was a girl, he'd take us on holiday to the moons of Dul. Those were the only times I ever really got to know him.
On the royal evening, I interject. She nods.
After he scuttled the ship and melted it down for scrap, we hardly saw each other anymore. Then, a few months ago, I intercepted a communication sent from his personal number. He was working some inside deal on Jannix. But from a financial standpoint, that didn't make any sense. At least, not for our father's business. The whole point of having off-world operations on Invictus is to bypass certain planetary government sanctions. Tax and legal technicalities mostly. It would have been breaking the law to use Invictus Company money to buy property on Jannix. Still, I figured he knew what he was doing. I was content to leave it alone until I stumbled on a transmission between Nathan and a guy I knew was a Blue Wreath operative. When I broke the encryption, I found out Nathan was, and had been for some time, conducting business on Blue Wreath orders. Over the next few months, I monitored him. He was in deep with the mob, and they had big plans. He was already assured to receive full ownership and operation of the Harlan Empire after our father passed away. Once he gained control, Blue Wreath would own everything our father spent his life to build.
And the properties in East Amber, I speak up. You think they were part of this business?
Just one of many deals Nathan had going on. Nothing particularly special about it. I decided to use those properties to send a message. Change the name on the title transfers as a little warning. I thought if he knew somebody was onto him, maybe he'd change his tune and back off.
Yvonne stops, folds her arms.
Your turn.
I grumble a little, but I do owe her a little explanation of my own. It'd take 5 men the size of Wilmer O'Hara to do all this to me, I say, spreading my arms to present my various wounds, or one very well-built bot. Yvonne's lips part slightly as she puts it all together. Ironic, in hindsight, what Rutherford told me about his offspring. His good, hard-working boy following in his footsteps, and his untrustworthy brat of a daughter. All this time, he's had it backward. The rumors heard were true, I say. Well, I heard it as a rumor, anyway, from my intel guy. I see now that with all this hardware, you must be your own intel guy. Nathan really was seen walking around, but not in the way either of us suspected. It was a double. A doppelganger bot made to look, speak, and behave exactly like Nathan Harland. She looks at the floor.
So, does that mean Nathan really is?
I think so, yeah. I'm sorry.
But why?
I suspect it was meant to effectively take his place, I say. After you and I spoke at the holiday, I went back to the scene of the crime to check things out. Just so happened that I got there just when Wilmer planned on offing Albright. Maybe Albright was getting wise. In any case, Wilmer pretended to have gotten a tip that Nathan was still alive and wanted to meet them in the factory. Just a ruse to lure Albright into the dark, where the real killer, the bot of Nathan Harland, could kill him too.
So you think the bot, the fake Nathan, killed the real Nathan?
I nod. Yvonne runs her hands over her arms, fighting a sudden chill. There was a lot about that crime scene that didn't make sense, I continue. At least, not when you are assuming the killer is human. When you realize the murderer was a bot, a machine with super strength capable of picking a man up with one hand and stacking up 600-pound pallets without the aid of any machinery to hide the body, that changes everything. I think Wilmer was going to let the bot kill Albright, but when I showed up, it threw a wrench into his plan. Albright had a nice, big shotgun that, with a well-placed shot, might have been able to take down even a bot. And he now had me, ex-cop and ex-military, there to back him up. Wilmer got nervous we might be able to take the bot down. He panicked. He shot Albright in the back. I knocked him out. Then Bot Nathan came after me. There was a noise from one of the monitors on the wall. Yvonne walks over to it and checks something.
"My father," she says, "calling for me."
"It's probably better if he doesn't know I'm here. For the moment," I say. "Until we've gotten this all straightened out, at least."
"Right," she says.
She crosses the room to the door, then stops and points to a set of cabinets in the wall.
"If you're hungry, help yourself to anything you can find in there. I'll try not to be too long. Look at me, hiding men in my room from my father. Someday, I ought to grow up."
She leaves me there in the dark, and for a while, I am content to just sit, enjoying the silence and rubbing my pounding head. But I'm thirsty, so I limp to the cabinet. It's full of things like food, water, medicine, and first aid supplies. But I've only got eyes for the 2 bottles of brandy on the top shelf. I start to reach for the first one, but I pull my hand back. No, there's no reason for it. I don't need that stuff. Never have. I grab one of the plastic bottles from the first aid supplies and swallow a few painkillers dry. I close my eyes. All I can see is Maria's white dress on the day we met. "I promise I will take care of you."
"I know you will, Jack."
I grab one of the bottles of brandy, pull open the top, and hate myself maybe more than I ever have before as I tilt it back and pour it down my throat. 27. The first time I wake up is to Yvonne slapping me in the face. I'm sitting on the ground, leaning heavily against the corner. She's saying something, but I can't quite make it out. She's trying to pull something away from my grasp. I assume it's an empty bottle. Then I realize, as she rips it from my hands, that it is Albright's shotgun. I try to stand, try to say something, but all I manage to do is lurch forward. I don't have the presence of mind to catch myself, so my face shares an intimate moment with the floor, bringing into view not 1 empty bottle, but 2. By now, I can't help but wonder why, after managing to hold on for all these years despite all the pain, I have chosen now to fall so low. There were some low lows before, sure, but nothing has felt quite like this. Never have I wanted to give up so badly. Never has everything hurt so badly. Never have I wanted so badly for it all to just end. Why now? The next time I wake up, Yvonne is forcing my head to the side so she can clean vomit off the floor. Sweet girl. She shouldn't have to deal with this. I try to move again and realize my hands are cuffed behind my back. Smart girl, too, saving me from myself. I wish she wouldn't bother. 28. Consciousness fades back in as I'm in mid-sip of a drink of water. I'm sitting up against the wall, my hands still cuffed behind my back, and Yvonne is helping me drink. Sorry, I say.
"It's all right," she lies. "Maybe I shouldn't have left you alone like that."
You had no reason to think I'd... I take a great gulp of water. My head is pounding, and my throat is very dry. I'm not really sure what came over me, I say. I've had some bad nights, some close calls, especially right after I lost Maria. But I've never let it get that bad before. I thought I was tougher than that.
"It has nothing to do with tough," she says. "It has to do with triggers."
I was accused of murdering my own wife. I sat through days of a trial where my good name, the only thing I had left, was dragged through the mud. Watched as Jack Tarelli, third-generation Amber PD detective, decorated war hero of Antioch, second lieutenant, became Jack the Knife. If that didn't trigger something, why this?
"Were you there when your wife died?"
she asks. "No," I snap. "If I had been, I'd have stopped it, or I would have destroyed whoever did that to her."
"That's what I thought,"
says Yvonne.
"It sounds to me like you want revenge not for what happened, but because you never got a chance to fight. You believe if you'd been there, it wouldn't have happened, right? Because you rarely lose a fight, except for the bot tonight."
I sneer a bit. "Analyzing me, huh?"
"Maybe not," she says. "Maybe I'm just talking. Maybe I know something about it myself. Don't forget that you're speaking to a woman who spent her whole life hiding her true identity, and the only man who ever really knew me left."
Silence for a few moments. She's now dressed in semi-formal clothing instead of the riding suit, and she takes a key from her pocket. She reaches behind me and unlocks the cuffs. I stretch out my aching shoulders and rub my wrists. Think I could be trusted now?
"Do you?"
she asks. I don't answer. "Can I ask you a question?" I say.
"You can try," she says.
"Any specific reason you chose the name Royal Evening for those title transfers? What was it? A little inside joke?"
"Maybe," she says. "I don't know if Nathan ever knew it was me or not, but I wanted him to know someone was watching as he betrayed his father and disgraced his name. Shortly after that, he moved home to live with us. He and I barely spoke a word to each other in that time. I never let on that I knew, though I did plan to eventually. And if he suspected anything of me, he never gave any indication. Maybe everything that happened as a result is my fault."
I look at her. Her voice sounds sad, but her gaze remains steady and even. Not a hint of breaking.
"If it's like you say," she says, "and Blue Wreath really did kill Nathan with the bot, then it probably wasn't a coincidence that they did it in that factory. Maybe the Royal Evening incident really did make him think twice about everything. Maybe Blue Wreath noticed his hesitation or saw nervousness or vulnerability in him. So they decided to replace him. If only I'd kept my nose out of it."
It hurts my back to move, but I ignore it as I lean forward and close my arms around her. At first, she tenses up, but then there's a nearly imperceptible tilt of her head as she leans in, resting on me. "Leave the if-onlys alone," I whisper. "They'll drive you crazy if you let them. Trust me." I feel a movement against my chest. It's her throat clenching. Is she crying? I can't tell. Her head shifts, and she's looking up at me, and the tips of our noses are almost touching. A crazy idea passes through my head, but I turn away from her instead of acting on it. I'm much too old for her, for a start. And besides that, Maria is the only woman there will ever be. Our life together had barely even begun when she was stolen from me. By now, she's been gone longer than I knew her. But I promised her my life, and I plan to give it to her. All of it. Maybe that seems stupid, but for some reason it's important to me. And the most important things are always the ones that no one else seems to understand. I study the floor for a while, feeling Yvonne watching me. Before she can say anything, I speak up. "I guess I better tell you what I know," I say. "Because if anything happens to me, you'll have to be the one to uncover the truth about this business with your brother and Blue Wreath. First thing you need to know is that this whole chain of events revolves around one very important person who remains a mystery, and I still don't have any leads."
"Who?"
she asks. "The anonymous caller. The guy who gave the cops the location of Nathan's body. It's a struggle, but I force myself to stand. I'll have to do it sometime. Might as well be now." "Nathan may never have been found if not for that caller," I say. "The body had been entombed under industrial-grade pallets to hide it. The whole district is a ghost town, and with Blue Wreath in control of Nathan's affairs, those factories would have belonged to them. If his death had gone unreported, the bot would have taken his place. That thing would have come back here. It could have been living with you, under the same roof, and nobody'd have been the wiser. Which brings me to my second point. If control of the properties was the only motive, they could have gone about it more easily than this. No, there's a reason they needed to replace Nathan. See, a Blue Wreath boy I had a run-in with a couple nights ago told me something interesting. He said there was nothing I could do, that the old man was as good as dead. Yvonne's eyes go wide. I nod. Your father, he is their target. Probably the real target all along. You said it yourself. He's stood up to the mob his whole life. Never caved, unlike most of the businessmen in this town. They have every reason to want him gone, but he's grown paranoid in his old age. Like you said the first night I was here, he's beefed up security, never takes visitors, uses a bot because he doesn't trust hired help, and hardly ever leaves the safety of his tower. But if a doppelganger bot in the shape of his own flesh and blood came waltzing in, nobody would know there was trouble until it was too late.
There are security systems,
Yvonne protests.
A bot would never get past.
Please, they wouldn't have gone through all this trouble if they didn't have some way around that. But it's not going to happen. Not anymore. The anonymous caller saw to that. Whoever tipped off the cops foiled Blue Wreath's plan. The body was never supposed to be found, but it was. And when that happened, their replica was good for nothing but drawing the attention of some confused waitresses down at the local club. That, and offing nosy cops, I guess. I sigh, wishing I could have figured this all out before Albright was killed.
So that thing is still out there,
says Yvonne.
They could still use it somehow to trick my father.
Probably not, I say. Bot Nathan almost killed me, but I messed him up pretty good, too. I imagine it'd take a while to fix the damage and get him looking convincingly human again. But that won't stop the mob. They'll still take what they want. They'll still try to get at Rutherford anyway they... Nathan Harlan Memorial Services announced. Deceased father, billionaire Rutherford Harlan, to receive guests in Amber City's Botanical Gardens, in his first public appearance in almost 20 years. I smile at Yvonne. Do you think you could find it in your heart to overlook my behavior tonight? She cocks an eyebrow.
In time.
Good. Then I need your help.